Hello, everybody. My name is Lebepe. You are watching Life After Death. This show, Life After Death, is based on my book, which is entitled Life After Death. If you want to get yourself a copy of my book, Life After Death, I want you to stay tuned for an announcement that will follow after this episode so that we can get that book through to you and you will get it right at your doorpost. On today's show, I want to talk about how to break free from a cycle of borrowing. How to break free from a cycle of borrowing. In my book, Life After Death, you will find a chapter where I talk about money traps. And borrowing is really one of the most common and also the most biggest money traps that a lot of people find themselves in. And because of borrowing money, either through credit card, either through personal loans, either through even borrowing money from loan sharks or friends, borrowing in itself is, a greatest deterrent, a greatest delay, and a greatest distraction to your financial freedom. If you are going to break free financially, you have to do that by breaking free from the cycle of borrowing. And I'll tell you why. It's because borrowing is actually eating your money or spending your money in advance. So every time you take up a credit or a loan or you borrow money from a friend or a loan check even, those ones are even worse because by the time you have to pay them back, you do so with high interest. I have had people talk to me and telling me that they had to pay a dirt back to the loan sharks in excess of 40% interest. And, imagine you go to a loan shark because you are short of 5,000 rand and they give you that money. Of course, they will hold your IDs and other valuables. People have told me so. And then the next time month end comes, you still have to pay your mandatory expenses. You still have to pay your household responsibility. Your rent needs to be paid. Your transportation to work, to school, and everywhere. Life still needs to happen. And you are sitting there with this 5,000 debt plus 40% interest that you have to pay to your loan shark. So what happens? You give that loan shark, back his 5,000 with interest on top of that. And guess what you have just created? You have created another gap in your income where some expenses are not going to be paid because you can't afford to lose 7,000 back to a loan shark when at the first place your salary was not enough to cater for your needs. So what do? Immediately after paying back the loan shark, you realize, day number 3 after payday, you realize, I think I need to go back to that person. They need to borrow me more this time. And that's how people sink deep into a cycle of borrowing. And for years, some of you watching might say, it sounds like you're speaking to me because you probably have been trapped into this endless cycle of borrowing, either from your credit card or paying back a personal loan for years. I want to say to you, I'm sharing with you from a personal experience. If you watch one of my videos that I did with TBN on my YouTube channel, you will hear how I share a story of how I broke out of, personal debts that amounted to over 1 million. And I share ways and means by which, I've done that. Breaking out of financial entanglement, debts of how I eradicated more than 1 million debt. And people ask me, what kind of debt was that? It was a collection of all different sorts. I had student debts, I had credit card loans, I had business loans, and it was just all of that together that got me to a place where by the time I started a financial rehabilitation program and I started putting down all these expenses, credit card loan, student loan, business loan, personal loan, all of it amounted to over 1 million. But I'm talking to you today debt-free because, the principles that I share in my book, Life After Death, especially on debt eradication, are really effective. And I am so grateful to get feedback from people that purchased this book, read this book, applied the principle of debt rehabilitation, debt review, and financial adjustments, and are also sharing the same victory of financial freedom. It really works. So please do get yourself there. Now, back to breaking the cycle of borrowing. I said that borrowing is spending your money in advance. Borrowing is eating your future. And guess what? If you eat tomorrow's money today, if you eat or you spend tomorrow's money today, you will be broke tomorrow. If you eat tomorrow's food today, you will be hungry tomorrow. If you wear tomorrow's clothes today, you will be naked tomorrow. So borrowing, it's spending your money in advance, because every time you do that, you say to people or to financial institution, I will pay you guys when I get paid. You see, you're spending your money even before it comes there. And it is for that reason that a lot of people are struggling with financial problems, and they in fact have a lot of month at the end of their money than a lot of money at the end of the month. You need to break out of that cycle. Now, I want to show you something that I said recently in a gathering. I said, these are the stages of borrowing that should wake you up. Number one, when you borrow money from a friend, or if a friend borrows money from you for the first time, it's an emergency. For the second time, it's a second chance. For the third time, it's a tendency. For the fourth time, it's a cycle. For the fifth time, it's an entitlement. For the sixth time, it's a habit. And for the seventh time, it's an addiction. So when people borrow money from you for the first time, help them. It's an emergency. If they come back next month for the second time and ask for the same amount of money or more, maybe it's a second chance, and everybody deserves a second chance. But once they come for the third, I had a friend who borrowed money from me every single month for 2 years. So, and at the time where I said to him, I could no longer help him out, guess what? He was so disappointed. He started asking me questions like, so what do you think my kids are going to eat now? Why? Because it had gotten to a point where borrowing money from me, even though I did not owe him, had become an entitlement. And he was living in a habit that has graduated to an addiction of borrowing. And borrowing is really bad. Sometimes the most powerful way to help people who borrow money from you is to not help them. I'm going to say that again. Sometimes the best way to help people who are borrowing money from you is to not help them. What I've realized is, I've made an observation. You see street kids on the street robots. Why are they spending years in the cold, in the streets, sleeping below bridges? It's because they have become acquainted to a survival method, to a mechanism of survival. They know someone is going to bail them out. Someone is going to give them food. Someone is going to give them money. So they don't break free of that cycle of poverty simply because they have gotten acquainted to a certain way or a certain system that keeps on sponsoring that lifestyle. The same way, when people borrow money or when they get themselves out of emergencies, and how they get themselves out of emergencies is by borrowing money from colleagues and friends and family members, and those people keep helping them. It doesn't make them realize the agency and the need to break out or to bring that borrowing to a stop. Why? Because at the back of their mind, they always know, my sister, my colleague, my brother, my wife, my spouse is going to bail me out. I remember at the time where nothing could bail me out when I had my 1 million debts and plus. I went to the bank, I was not credit worthy. I turned to friends who were millionaires, none of them was willing to help me. And they had very good reasons why. They said, listen, if the bank can't borrow you money, it's simply because based on their systems, they use systems that is able to tell whether the person will be able to pay back their loan or not. And if you are in credit bureau, that is to say that you're not credit worthy, and you're not credit worthy because you do not have the financial feasibility to prove that you can pay back the loan. And my friends would say to me, if the bank cannot give you that 100,000, that 50,000 that you say you need from us, If the whole bank, based on their sophisticated system, believe that they should not borrow you money, then why should we? And I was at a point in my life where every door closed. No one, not even family members, were willing to assist me. And do you know what that did to me? It made me realize that I have no one to turn to except myself. And that's how I broke out of the cycle of borrowing. Borrowing can become an addiction. It can become a dependency syndrome. When people are acquainted to bailing themselves out of monthly emergencies by borrowing from friends, they will never stop. And that's why I'm saying to you, sometimes the most powerful way to help someone like that is to not help them, so that they can come to a point where they realize that they got to stop. And someone is probably angry with me and say, but are you teaching people not to help us? It's because I'm trying to get you to a place where you have your financial freedom. And financial freedom is way better than monthly bailouts. Is way better than, you see, this 500, 1,000 rand, 200 rands that you keep asking from friends. You really want to get to a place where you are financially free and financially independent, and where you can sustain yourself. And that's what breaking free from borrowing does. I'm just going to repeat those cycle of borrowing. And like I said, if you borrow money, or if friends borrow money from you for the first time, it's an emergency. The second time, it's a second chance. The third time, it's a tendency. The fourth time, it's a cycle. The fifth time, it's an entitlement. Sixth time, it's a habit. And seventh time, it's an addiction. So if you have borrowed more than 7 times, whether from friends, or there's that one friend or family member that has borrowed from you more than 7 times, they have reached an addiction level, and they have to break free from borrowing. Why? Because if you had no debts to pay, you owed nobody, no man, you had no one to pay money at the end of the month except yourself, guess what? You will have enough money, to save. And some of you say, no, you know what? My salary is just little. Just like I said in my book, and I say it from experience. Financial problems are not caused by how much people earn, or by how little or how much people earn. I've seen people with money problems at all levels of salaries. I've seen high salary earners depressed with finances. It's not necessarily how much one earns. It's how well they know how to spend what they earn. So if you are at a place where you can't save money because you say, well, I don't even have enough for my current needs at the moment, I would really want to encourage you to get my book. Get into the chapter where I talk about how to come out of debts through 3 steps. And you will see that by applying those steps, you can break free of, number 1, the cycle of borrowing, and you can break free, from debts. And let me tell you something. The excitement, the joy of being debt-free, it's so beautiful. And, the excitement of having no one, no institution call you, reminding you that you need to pay, of having no deductions going off from your account, it's the most beautiful thing. You can get to a point where I am at right now, where you divert your monthly installments into monthly savings. Why? Because I've paid off my car. So if I've paid off my car, the same amount of installment that I used to pay on that car, now I use that to pay myself in a form of savings. Financial freedom is such great, but for you to get there, you need to break out from a cycle of borrowing. Why? It is a dependency syndrome. It is a bad coping strategy, and it needs to end. May you start this year by breaking that cycle of borrowing so that you can access your financial freedom. Stay tuned for the next announcement, and let's see how we can get this book, Life After Debts, to your doorstep, and your financial life will never be the same again.
We hope that you've been impacted by this broadcast. To order a copy of Life After Death, send us a WhatsApp or SMS text message to 071 352 4581. You can also request a list of other books by Lucky Lebepe via the same contact. Be sure to subscribe to Lucky Lebepe YouTube channel for more episodes. Life After Death a guide to financial freedom.